This is the Carolyn Bessette-Kennedy industrial complex. And every one of these books tells a different story of the same woman. Difficult, misunderstood, adored, complicated, guarded, iconic. 6 books, 6 completely different women. So I went looking for the real one. And I found the reason no one can agree on who Carolyn Bessette-Kennedy was is actually very simple. She never told us.
What did you think of the show tonight?
It was very exciting, wonderful evening.
Yeah. What was your highlight? What was the highlight for you?
The entire evening was spectacular. There's no highlight.
There are more videos of Bigfoot than there are of Carolyn Bessette-Kennedy speaking. And that silence is exactly where the myth begins. You're probably as exhausted by the Carolyn Bessette-Kennedy fashion discourse as I am. The how to dress like CBK articles are redundant at this point. We know it always involves Petit Bateau tops and Levi 517 bootcut jeans and Selima Optique Aldo sunglasses and CO Bigelow headbands and square-toe Prada boots. Hello, goodbye. Paparazzi pictures of her have absolutely besieged my timeline and the feeds of every woman I know who dresses in that very particular substacky way that involves the tying of the silk scarf as a belt. You know the Venn diagram. You're probably in it. I'm definitely in it. It's a circle at this point.
We all think we're Carolyn Bessette.
And can I just say something really quick? Put 30 seconds on the clock. I'm saying it. You're being weird about Carolyn Bessette-Kennedy.
Unnecessary denies.
What the f***? It's weird that so much of what's being called Carolyn Core is just cosplay. It's weird that we romanticize her resistance to fame while consuming her like content. And I'm not going to get into the specifics because I really don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. And also because I too, despite being a woman of fashion, have been known to leave the house in a way that CBK would have probably found profoundly disturbing. So glass houses, but clean girl and old money do not belong in the same sentence as CBK. CBK was strong-willed and eccentric and intentional, and that's not the same thing as neutral. The whole point is that what she was doing can't be reverse engineered into a TikTok trend. It was a person, it wasn't a vibe, and that person's gone. Which begs the question, how does a woman who died in 1999 still make people feel something relevant in 2026? Why is CBK hitting so hard right now? Yes, The Ryan Murphy Show is #1 on Disney Plus worldwide. We love Love Story, but that alone doesn't explain it, because if it were just nostalgia and you're saying, well, watch anything about the Kennedys, what say you of the Kennedys after Camelot, which Rotten Tomatoes called one of the 5 worst TV shows ever made? No, you missed that one too? Exactly. So here's what's strange to me. For someone whose image is everywhere, her voice is almost nowhere.
Right here, please.
Please don't get so close to me.
In her memoir, A Fairy Tale Interrupted, JFK Jr.'s chief of staff, RoseMarie Terenzio, wrote, the girl was basically
a sitting duck. If I don't leave the house before 8 a.m., they're waiting for me every morning. Just try to smile and don't say a fucking word, I told her. I always stressed to Carolyn that she shouldn't let the press, the paparazzi, or cameramen hear her voice. Person's voice is personal and intimate. If they never heard hers, I thought they wouldn't get what they wanted.
CBK was one of the most photographed women of the 1990s, but never gave a formal on-camera interview, ever. She gave some sound bites on red carpets with JFK Jr.
I think it's sort of fabulous. I hope they're all sitting with me.
And there are photo shoots here and there, ones with Bruce Weber and Mario Sorrenti. There's some early press about her style in 1992 for Glamour and Mirabella, which is Grace Mirabella, the former editor of Vogue magazine. But she didn't really give interviews. And by not speaking, she was neglecting what I think is the most basic PR principle of all, which is that if you don't tell your story, someone else will. The beautifully dressed blonde woman who doesn't respond to photographers becomes an ice queen. We've learned again and again that she was really anything but. And I want to read you this passage from the memoir What Remains by Miss Princess Carole Radziwill of seasons 5 to 10 of Roni, who was Carolyn's dear friend and husband by marriage.
Carolyn wasn't afraid to touch. She held my hand while she talked to me, or when we walked down the street. She played with my hair, absent-mindedly, when she was making a point. There was no awkward embrace with her, no hesitation. She hugged you tight, as if she might never see you again.
The woman Newsweek called a vaguely soulless mannequin hugged you tight as if she might never see you again. Those are not the same woman. The 1990s, even though we might romanticize it as all smoking in bars and thin eyebrows, actually rewarded a very specific kind of celebrity woman who was wholesome and clean cut and easily palatable. And we had a name for it, America's Sweetheart. which is just a marketing term from 1914. They gave it to the silent film star Mary Pickford, who was actually Canadian, but whatever. The template has always been the same. You know what you're getting into. She's never going to surprise you. It's Julia Roberts. It's Meg Ryan. It's Sandy Bullock. I don't know. I went with Sandy, just felt correct. Carolyn was penalized in the 90s for the exact quality that we're now treating as aspirational in the 2020s. The silence that made her an ice queen in 96 keeps her on every major designer's mood board in 2026. And because the press couldn't sell her as America's sweetheart, they sold her as its opposite. In Beller's Once Upon a Time, the author writes,
Popular fictions about Carolyn were that she was having numerous affairs and was a cocaine addict. There had been the raging party girl claims by the Washington Post. No one who knew her well gave credence to these rumors.
I found this Village Voice article from 1996 that described her as having, quote, morphed from shop-worn club girl to fashion avatar from Camelot. And I thought, surely that does not mean what I think it does, shop-worn, but it does. Made dirty or imperfect by being handled in a store. That's not aesthetic commentary. That's calling a woman used. Tabloids were even worse later on. Let's say from the Globe, January 97, JFK Jr.'s bride has nervous breakdown. In the same publication, September 97, JFK Jr. and bride, what's wrong? He prefers the guys to her. She's still not pregnant. He's having second thoughts. A friend wrote in the JFK Jr. oral history,
the celebrity came quickly for Carolyn. It was much slower for Jackie. But it was a different kind of celebrity, too, because people were inclined to be favorably disposed to Jackie. For some reason, the press had decided they were not going to be favorably disposed to Carolyn. If somebody was going to steal our prince, they wanted her to be some kind of entirely unblemished princess.
And actually, one more thing about that, JFK Jr. had an obvious type, so Carolyn couldn't have been that much of a surprise. Like, what do you notice about these 3 photos of Carolyn? It's a trick question. 2 of them aren't Carolyn. He just liked dating, and I'm keeping that in quotes, a series of very famous blonde women. So part of what the public thought they were reacting to wasn't even Carolyn specifically, it was the outline, the hair and the height, the idea of that person that they already recognized and then assigning her a role inside of it. So 30 years later, the exact thing that made her difficult is what makes her compelling, which then raises the question, did that silence actually serve her, or was it a trap that just happened to age well? And I do want to say something here that I think is important that I'm not really hearing in the CBK conversation, which is the idea of restraint as aspirational is very thin white woman coded. And in my opinion, that self-denial as virtue thing really goes back to our Puritan ancestors. Your Puritan ancestors, my ancestors, certainly not. My cultural inheritance is like frizzy hair and a curvy spine, but I too have bought the headbands. So clearly it got me. Most people think of Carolyn as aspirational in a very specific way. Old money, waspy, effortlessness, but she was neither old money nor wasp nor effortless. She was Catholic. She was born into, by all means, a very middle-class American family, although her mother did remarry a surgeon. And she was very purposeful with her style. She was meticulous about every item of clothing that she bought. And in fact, fashion magazine editors at the time called it effortlessness. But to me, the thing about CBK that no one's talking about, the actually aspirational thing in hindsight, is that despite being one of the most photographed women in the world, she didn't care to explain herself to any of us.
In Richard Blow's memoir, American Son, he writes,
at a May charity benefit sponsored by George and the actor Paul Newman, Carolyn told gossip columnist Mitchell Fink of the Daily News that she no longer read about herself because I don't want to know. The gossip has nothing to do with how I live my life. I have problems and issues just like anybody, but I'm a happy person and maybe a better person for not knowing.
Today, everyone's expected to narrate themselves.
I wanted to give you guys an update on my life.
Yo, I just want to jump on.
I just wanted to jump on here.
Here's what's in my bag.
This is everything I eat in a day.
This is our kitchen.
Wanted to take this time to address.
I'm going to go on record and say I am so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
I just want to be transparent with you.
It seems I need to clear something up.
Carolyn never did that, but influencers survive on that sort of access. Actresses are contractually obligated to do press for their films, and the same with singers for their albums or authors for their books. I think that privacy is the chicest thing on earth because it's a luxury a lot of people can't afford. For instance, moi, if I wasn't actively making documentaries, you would never hear from me again. And in an era where everyone's trying to influence you in some visible way, there's an exhaustion that comes from it. The feeling that everyone's selling you something, but disingenuously. That maybe they don't actually like those vitamins as much as they're suggesting in that promoted ad, that they'd never actually wear that shoe had they not explicitly gotten paid to do so. Influencers promote and romanticize a certain lifestyle so that they can then sell you back some small piece of it, whether that's through an affiliate link or a brand deal or a course on how to influence, or maybe they're just after your attention, which is a currency in and of itself. I'm just after your attention. That's why Gen Z is so obsessed with her. It's because scarcity feels luxurious now. Just like silence allows other people to tell your story for you, if you don't make money off of yourself, other people might. And I'm not just talking about the photographers who camped outside of her apartment every day to sell pictures to tabloids. I'm not even talking about the female paparazzo, which I guess is paparazza, maybe, who sold the infamous fight video in Washington Square Park for a 6-figure paycheck. I'm talking about how people are still making money off of her taste 30 years later. I'm thinking of the New York Times article by Vanessa Friedman from 2023, which called Carolyn a ghost influencer. And it's true. She's not even here. And she's outselling marketing departments with Harvard MBAs and full-time content teams, e.g. the exact shade of lipstick she wore, Cranberry Veil, from this company, Face Stockholm, is experiencing delays on its website. A brand that doesn't even exist anymore. Abdul Karim Egyptian musk oil that made her signature scent, you can maybe find for 7 times the price on eBay, if at all, if you're lucky. And the headbands she got around the corner of my old apartment are completely out of stock at CO Bigelow after apparently selling 6 figures worth of hair accessories just last month. We almost know more about what she bought than what she thought. It sort of reminds me of the early Lady Gaga playbook, how she used fashion, albeit in a completely different way, to guide the conversation away from her personal life. It's the equivalent of throwing the paparazzi a chunk of raw meat so they all attack it while you sneak out the back door. For Gaga, sometimes that was literally raw meat. But we haven't really experienced anything like Carolyn since. There are famous people who opt out of celebrity. My mind goes right to my patron saints, my girls, the Olsens. At this point, almost every photo of them is a paparazzi shot taken without their consent and sometimes without them even realizing it. And of course, Beyoncé stopped giving traditional sit-down interviews around 2013, but those women built their silence on top of existing platforms from a position of power. By 2013, Beyoncé had already given us Destiny's Child, 5 solo albums, Foxy Cleopatra, Dina Jones, Etta James, a Super Bowl halftime show, and, lest we forget, Carmen, a hip opera, which is probably only as important as those other ones to me and like 7 other people. The Olsens had 2 successful TV shows and 14 massively influential to me direct-to-VHS films under their belts before they went AWOL. And by the way, I'm literally cited in the Wikipedia article for To Grandmother's House We Go. That's true. Look it up. Wait, side note, I get one more tangent. Put another 30 seconds on the clock. How is almost every female character in Love Story a Nepo baby? Grace Gummer, who plays Caroline Kennedy, is Meryl Streep's daughter. Dree Hemingway, who plays Daryl Hannah, Mariel Hemingway's daughter and Ernest Hemingway's granddaughter. Layla George, who plays Kelly Klein, Greta Scacchi, and Vincent D'Onofrio's daughter. Sophie von Hasselberg, who plays Caroline's boss. Bette Midler's daughter. Sydney Lemon, who plays Lauren Bessette. Jack Lemon's granddaughter. The last time this many white girls with famous parents were in one show, Lena Dunham was casting girls. This is basically sun casting, but I digress. Carolyn didn't inherit or create a platform. She married into one. The silence wasn't a strategy she deployed. It was just who she was. And the real scandal, to me, is that Carolyn never got to monetize her mystique, unlike, let's say, the Olsens, who are arguably the most camera-shy celebrities we have today, and who basically melt down into candle wax when they see a camera. Even those Olsens figured out a way to redirect public attention away from themselves and back into their own pockets. Good for them. If we want access to Olsen-level taste, it comes in the form of a $14,000 leather trench coat or this $10,000 plated poplin bustier gown, which coincidentally does indeed look like melted candle wax to me. Time takes the edges off the old headlines and leaves just the mystique. There's no new quotes, no new incidents, no new corrections. The story just stops. And with that distance, we start filling in the gaps ourselves. We draw conclusions based on fragments. So CBK turns into a blank screen. We project whatever we want onto her because there's so little from her to contradict us. So the question isn't who is Carolyn? It's why do we keep needing her to be something? We live in a moment where identity is performed and monetized. If I think about this, what we're doing right now, too much, I always come to the conclusion that I'm just performing my personality at you. But Carolyn didn't narrate her life, didn't explain her decisions, didn't try to be palatable to the public. And now that we exist in an age where everyone's expected to have a personal brand, that feels radical. She represents restraint in an era of overshare, and her particular brand of minimalism is aspirational because chaos is exhausting. And this one's uncomfortable, but she died before the disillusionment arc. She never gave a messy interview on a Celebrity Friends podcast, never had a skincare line that didn't do well, so she's permanently unresolved. And the reason that unresolved figures are useful is because they never contradict the version of themselves that we prefer. So Carolyn remains pure potential. To the people who knew her, she might have been guarded or adored or misunderstood. To the public, she's an ice queen or a victim or a paragon of restraint and good taste. But because she didn't self-mythologize, we've been doing it for her. Gen X built the myth in real time. Millennials turned it into an aesthetic. Gen Z made it into a Pinterest religion. It's bipartisan. Ryan Murphy made a show about a woman defined by silence, and in doing so, committed the exact sin that we've been talking about, which is someone else telling her story for her, for profit. Which, if we're being honest, is what all of this is. The legend survived because it never had to evolve.